It is 5:01, calling the meeting to order. Roll call, Dale.
Okay, Commissioner Callan.
Here.
Commissioner Fucci.
Present.
Commissioner Grace. Present. Commissioner Lozey.
Here.
And Commissioner Salona.
Here. Next, minutes of the previous meeting. Did anyone have a chance to look at it? I had one comment. This is just a clarification. This is probably for Rick, actually. In terms of us drawing different water in, the 10 million gallons, can you describe, what is it with the 10 million gallons in December 1st? If 10 million gallons is flowing at the Ipswich, or?
After pumping, we have to leave 10 million gallons of flow in the river after we commence pumping. So we have to make sure that there's always 10 million gallons of water while we're taking water.
So you have like a flow meter or something at the?
Well, there's a USGS gauge that actually records the flow. It's right
Okay.
downstream of our station by the Bostic Dam.
Okay, yep.
So, yeah, a lot going on with that.
Yes.
So we have to make sure that there's 10 million gallons in the river after we are pumping water out of it before we.
Got it.
So
Super.
basically, we normally take about 13 or 14 MGD out, so we try to make sure there's like 27, 28 MGD in there.
Got it.
A little bit of safety factor.
Okay. Super, thank you. That's all I was looking for. Does someone want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
Second. Motion to approve.
Rich seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Right, okay, oh yeah, good. That was unanimous. Treatment plan update?
Wastewater treatment plant update. I put extensive information in your package. The first document is the bill from August for 1.3 million. A lot of work going down at the plant. Next one is the application. It's the 36th payment, so we've been there for 3 years. We paid them approximately 53 million. We're at approximately 78%. Things are going well. Next actually is the payment request for the month. Then we have the progress report on the 37th meeting, which coincides with the 36 payments. For the agenda, most of the work is being working on the pump stations, Hollis Road, Camden, Washington, and then there's obviously some work going on at the treatment plant, the liquid oxygen system, screenings, grit, primary scum pumps, sludge thickeners. Then we have change orders and our owner's allowance there for you. 3.5 each approximately, 3.5 million. The requisitions are up to speed on to 26 to pay the contractor. We're having some issues with the DEP, but that should be approved shortly. So the contractor's happy. And then again, this is just the agenda, the minutes of the meeting from September, but we've moved on to the October document. And then the contractor, Nicholson's, his work schedule for the next 3 months is in your package, but all in all, things are going well. We haven't incurred any debt service on the payment from the SRF loan yet, but it sounds like they're gonna split them in half, so we're gonna get like a $37 million debt service at some point, and then we complete the project, we'll get another $37 million that will start to kick in.
Okay.
So right now, we're essentially just transferring the money from the DEP to the contractor without any burden on the ratepayers, but eventually they're gonna start looking for their money.
Yep.
So, but everything's going well, we're gonna have a plant that's up to speed for the next 20 years, and things will be good.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Dan? Nope. All right, water treatment plant?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the Blue Water and Sewer Commission is in compliance with all federal state drinking water regulations. Water supply capacity as of yesterday was at 50%. The average for this time of year is 62%. And we put in the package a copy of the voluntary curtailment notice we put in recently. Now, we've reached the point where you're gonna put a mandatory ban notice in the paper. We already posted today all the entrance points to the city for water ban. And we reach out to the departments from the city to let them know that. But it's the difference between now and 2 years ago is we were 6 weeks earlier. So there was a lot of concern, everybody was still trying to water their lawns, and DPW with their city gardens and
Yep.
circles and so forth. So, but we're still gonna go through and just let everybody know it's time to curtail their use of water. And forecast, I've looked at the forecast the next 7 days, there's not a drop in sight for the next 7 days anyway, so it's kind of a really weird pattern we're in, where this is the time of year, usually things start to pick up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've had 7/10 of an inch so far this month, 1.1 something inches in September, and that was after 28 days of no water at all,
Yeah.
no rain at all. So it's kind of a unique pattern we're in right now. And all 10 of the contract full-time positions at the water plant are currently filled.
Great, thank you.
Do you want me to go right into the lead?
Sure, yes, if you don't mind.
So there's copies of draft public notification letters for each situation. I'll describe them in a minute. So, the Lynn Water Sewer Commission contracted CDM Smith through a grant, using Mass DEP SRF line funding to complete 4 major tasks that were required under the lead copper rule revisions law that was promulgated in December 2021. 3 of the tasks would be completed by October 16th, and we completed them by October 10th. The first one being the submittal of a service line inventory of the entire distribution system of both the public and the private side. The second task was the submittal of a lead service line replacement plan, which is, I put a copy of in your package. And the third task was to provide public access to the service line inventory, which we completed by putting in the installation of an interactive GIS dashboard on the Lynn Water and Sewer Commission website. So any homeowner in Lynn could either type in the address or click on the home, and they'll tell the status of their lead service lines on both the public, service lines on both the public and the private side. Now the fourth task is to be completed by November 15th, which is to mail public information notification letters to the residents and the structures that fall under 3 categories as a result of the inventory. First one being if you have a confirmed lead service, the second one being if you have galvanized pipe, which they require, which is actually labeled galvanized pipe, which requires replacement, which means basically there was lead on the upstream side that could have adhered to the galvanized pipe and later on can shed off. And the third group, which is the biggest group for us, is the unknowns. So right now we have the draft of the letters. I gave you copies of each category, the leads, the unknowns, and the galvanized. And right now we're just trying to put the format that would be the most easiest to mail them out to the residents, because the law requires that we have to mail them to the owner and the actual address itself. So if you mail it to the owner and he owns multiple addresses, you have to indicate which address it is. So that's what we're doing right now. And most likely the format's gonna be very similar to what you see on the water quality report, where one page will be dedicated to the language and the mailing. And the information that's on those 2 pages will be spread out, the 3 pages, which would be a little less compliant.
Because I don't think in our packet,
I don't see it either.
I don't think we got those letters.
Oh, yeah, they're right.
Or
Yeah.
were they on the table, sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, totally, great.
Yeah, so there's a letter for each category.
I think everyone gets one, so
Thank you.
You sure?
I'm positive. You can have 2 though, if you want.
Thank you. Let me get the ones, is that what it is? Unknowns, these are the unknowns. It'll be a little different at the top. There's a confirmed lead one.
Yeah, everyone takes one of each package.
Yeah, there's one of each.
So did you send the postcard as well?
The postcards were sent as part of the inventory project,
Yeah.
and we were reaching out to everybody to see if they can help us determine what the service line
That was
is. We received close to 100 responses, which
Oh, that's
helped
great.
us. But answer everybody. There was over 20,000 postcards sent out.
Yeah, it's listed here.
Oh, it was 300, I'm sorry, 300 responses, which is better.
Oh, okay. 20,000 mailed, and then we have 300 responses. Is that the only way of communication we're doing here?
Well, no, that was the first communication, which
Yeah.
was while we're developing the inventory. Now we're letting the residents, the homeowners know what was the result of the inventory, and let people know that we still don't know what your service is. And going forward, I was gonna talk about a little bit, but there's a new law that just got promulgated this month, which is the lead copper rule improvements law, which starting in 2027, we have 10 years to identify all the unknowns at 10% per year and remove any known lead line that we, either on the public and private side, which is something that's gonna take some effort to do that. And in the lead line replacement plan that you have, it actually details different methods of determining that in the future. Some of them, it could be test pits, some of them could be using modeling, but there's also some technology that's just in the drawing boards now that hopefully within the next 3 years, that will come into play, which would make it a little easier.
Just the one you emailed, right?
But,
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a nationwide industry.
Yes, yes, this is in Massachusetts and across the country.
Yeah,
This is not just us or Lynn, this is everywhere.
So, the DEP had the requirement to actually get the replacement plan out now. The EPA requirement was within 3 years, but the Mass DEP wanted to get an idea where everybody was going, because it's a daunting task to deal with all this information and how you're going to address it. With the final outcome being they want to remove lead from all drinking water, a source of lead. That's the outcome of these regulations that they're putting out right now.
Question?
So
Yeah.
in the
Oh,
replacement
can you hold on for a
plan,
second? Rich has a question.
Who's paying for this?
who's paying?
Yeah, for this
Well,
lead removal.
at this point, removing the lead on our side is our responsibility. There's a table on page in the replacement plan, which I'll go over with you, there's 59 that we know of, 59 lead services that go from the main, the property owner. That will be our responsibility to take them out. And then on the public side, on the private side, that a lot has to be figured out there, how much funding will be available, will it be low interest loans, will there be grant money available for that? I think right now, the state has I believe around $53 million to provide to this, but when you're talking about the level of work that's gonna be needed, it's gonna be needed a lot more than that.
But right now, our responsibility is from the main to the shut-off. So there's 59 over 3 years, so John Houlihan, the superintendent, could do one every 3 weeks, and we would comply in 3 years.
Okay.
Pretty simple. That's what we do every day, we replace the main from the service from the main to the shut-off.
But you really do not want to do a partial line replacement. I mean, ideally, you don't want to just do your side and leave the homeowner with a lead service line.
We don't go on private property.
No, I
You know,
understand
People are
that.
gonna want their driveway restored, their porch restored, they're gonna say they had perfect lights, walkway lights that we damaged, they're gonna mulch. We just never did private property for the liability of people, saying, you messed up my driveway, you owe me a new driveway.
I totally hear that. I mean, there are communities that have. So, I mean, I think we can figure out what else is out there, just in terms of, because you can make matters worse when you have a pipe there that's been there for a long time, building up lead. You jiggle it around to remove part of it, and then the rest of it's left. And you get a huge surge of lead. So it's just something to consider.
Yes.
I agree, but I just,
There's
it
total-
could be a
tons of
70
logistics.
Could be a 70-foot service on private property under someone's porch, under
Yep.
a walkway,
Yep,
it's something that needs to be discussed.
let me think about. Yeah, well, we can think, sorry, Vinnie.
Just a question on, let's say the average home, 10 to 20 feet from the street. What's the average cost, do you think it would cost to replace a lead pipe between the shut-off and the home? Just figuring,
What distance are we
what it
using?
would cost the homeowner, 10 feet, 12 feet?
Probably $2-3 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We would take it 3 to
So
1,000.
obviously, the easiest part is the portion that's in the roadway,
Right,
so you could probably 3 to 3,500.
yeah.
And once you start to get into private property, as Dan just mentioned, you run into someone's steps,
Yeah.
deck, restoration of bushes and so forth.
Right.
Escalate,
Yeah, I'm sure there's
5,000.
different circumstances for
Right,
different
right.
homes, but that's generally what I've wanted to hear.
I had mine replaced, partial service line replaced, not lead, because I called and someone at Lynn Water Sewer put the phone down, went to some tie cards, you hear him shuffling around, came back and said, congratulations, you don't have lead. So do your side, if you still have issues with pressure, because that was my issue, let us know, we'll come back and do our side.
Right.
And that was years ago, and I still think that was 3,500.
Really?
And mine's pretty simple. I mean, they can pull it out, I mean, it's not like they have to dig up everything, but they removed a few pieces of, the sidewalk. I'll also say, we're having gas work done on our street, and they're tearing up everything. I mean, and they don't ask, they just tear it up, so.
Very unexpected cost for homeowners, that's the tough part.
Totally. No, it's
Yeah.
absolutely. So anyway, so Rick, do you want to keep going?
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah, so basically some of the information's already been, but if you look on the replacement plan, when you get a chance, the key items I would think is that, on pages 1-1, 1-2, it gives a summary of what actions we've done so far, and what actions have to be done, performed under the lead copper rule improvements, the next stage. And on page 2-1, there's a summary of the inventory, so I was just gonna, if it's in your plan.
Okay.
And basically, out of the 20,530 services, we found 260 that had lead either side of both combined, which is about 1.3% of the services inventory. Non-lead was about 11,406, which is about 55 and
That's pretty good.
6%. Galvanized pipe requiring replacement was only 27. And then the unknowns were 8,837, which is 43%.
43.
So that's gonna be the much of the work is going to be, the mail to those people, which is, there's probably about 10,000 letters altogether. And, trying to figure a way, what's the best way in the next 13 years of finding out what the material of the service is actually on. And other components of the regulation, that, there's gonna be a new action level for lead. Right now, it's 15 parts per billion, and now it's gonna be reduced to 10. And if the house is tested above 10, normally an action level is a 90% now of all samples taken. And if an individual home is tested above 10, then we have to determine what measures we're gonna take to remove lead from the water. That's gonna be something to deal with. And also, on the minor side, but still a headache to us, is there's gonna be revisions to the sampling procedures, the locations, the method of sampling. It's all gonna change. There's gonna be more samples required per round. First to fifth liter, they call it, which is, it's gonna be somewhat challenging. So, well, there's a lot going on. But on the bright side, I just wanted to remind the commission that we do have a corrosion control plan in place through chemical treatment that prevents lead and copper from leaching from the pipes, including a pH control, which will keep the pH 7.2 to 7.8, neutral. And we also add zinc orthophosphate, which coats the pipe so that you don't have the lead and copper leaching off. So it has been very effective. We've always been in compliance with 90 percentile up until this point. But there's a lot going on from here on. And that's why I thought it was important that you should have that replacement plan with you, because it kind of details what's coming down the road. For all of us.
Sorry, when did you say the replacement plan was due?
The replacement plan itself that we submitted was due October 10, but the stipulations in it are in 2027.
And I think it said in there you're gonna have CDM help with phone calls.
Yes.
There's a lot of, these are a
yes,
lot of
because
letters
the
going out,
volume
and
of
it's gonna
calls we're
concern
expecting,
people.
CDM has set up an email, an individual email, and a phone line service. And we were able to get an extension on the SRF to cover the cost initially with handling the public comment.
So the plan didn't require like any funding or anything like that, just,
Oh, yeah, that's gonna be down the road. A lot of that's gonna have to be worked out, like Dan was saying, how are we gonna dictate what happens on the private side?
Yeah, no,
Because
it's
the
huge.
law states something has to happen.
Yeah. Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Rick? Thank you. And ballpark for the time period when you think these will go out? Do you have a sense of the timing? I know it has to happen by November 15th, sorry. Your letters, do you have a sense of
Yes,
when?
we've been really pushing that. It's just a matter of getting the mailing figured out, how we can get that address bar to work out the way we want.
Okay,
So as soon as possible,
yeah,
like I said, we should have a revised draft, which is in the water quality report format. I would say that by tomorrow or the next day, and therefore the address could be slapped right on it, no envelopes. We just felt if you had to do individual envelopes with individual bills, it was gonna be pretty hectic, but
okay.
we would really like to get it all done by the end of the month, if it's possible, but depending on the printing as well.
Okay.
But definitely, we will it'll be out before November 15th. so.
Sure, okay. All right, can you let me know when it goes out? Thank you. Well, let us know. If no one has any other questions for Rick, we can move on. Thank you, Rick. CSO update.
Anthony Marino? Okay, Anthony.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, Methuen Construction has been building our stormwater pump station on Commercial and Bennett Street. And they have completed, the pump station is basically complete. We've got some punch list items that we need to do. They've been working on installing the binder on the pump station, installing curbing. They've reopened the road, they've put down the double yellow line. So we've moved forward and the station is done. What we've been waiting on, and we've been working with National Grid for over 2 years, is to get the power to the station. And once we get the power to the station, we'll be able to go into the phase to test the pump station. That's been the juggernaut right now to move forward with this. What we need from them is for them to install a couple telephone poles and to bring us a transformer. The transformers have been very difficult to get since COVID. There's been a high demand, and we haven't been able to obtain either the poles or the transformer. So it's sort of on a standstill. This week, Bob Fennell reached out to Steve Smiley, plus the delegation. It looks like we've got some movement going forward. They've staked out the 2 telephone poles. It looks like they're probably going to install them this week, and then we'll be waiting for the transformer. Once the transformer arrives and the station's powered, Stantec will start to go through the procedure of testing the pump station to get it up and running. But it's moving forward. The construction end is done. It's just we're waiting to get the power to get this thing going. So that's the update for the pump station. So we're almost there. For the phase 4 and 5, which is the work on Bennett Street, which is that large 72-inch pipe. Again, we had a major delay from National Grid with the having to move their existing force main that they have there, their gas pipe, and that's looks like they've completed that now. So Joseph has moved forward installing the dewatering wells because it's so deep. This 72-inch line, they've got to start to do some prep work to dewater the area so that they can install the 72-inch pipe. So that's moving forward, but that's also has caused a delay in the project. They are still working on all the other streets, doing the water mains, the sewer lines, the drain lines, and they've got off and on sometimes 6 crews in the city, so there's a lot of work that they have going on. But that work is moving forward, and it looks like very shortly we'll see a lot of work going on down the Main Street area. We've had a couple meetings with, we had a meeting at City Hall with the counselor in that ward, Fred Hogan. He did a community outreach where Stantec, someone from Geoso and myself did a talk and had an open questions session with them, and that's so I think that was good for them to have that. Also, Fred Hogan has had a meeting with the businesses in the area because there's a lot of impact in the businesses. So that took place also, and it looks like the business that was successful, and the businesses seem to be happy with signs and so forth. So that's a little different of an update this time around because I wanted to express that there's a lot of work going on, but there's been some delay. That's the update.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because Fred mentioned about neighborhood meetings as well. What are the concerns of the residents, aside from not just the businesses, that we need to work on too? And
So most of the questions was restoration. A lot of the sidewalks have been disturbed. The roadway, of course, has been disturbed. There's been a lot of questions about water mains. We try to replace as many water mains as possible down there, so everybody's getting a new service and an upgrade in their water main. But it seems like the residents there were worried about restoration, and we explained to them that the area was pre-construction photos were taken and so forth, and anything that was disturbed would be put back and replaced. So that was pretty much,
So you personally think they're happy after that meeting?
I think so. I think that they seem to appreciate it.
Do you have any follow-up meetings after or
I don't,
scheduled?
but if Fred would want to do another session, I'll be more than willing.
Right, okay, thank you.
All right, does anyone have any questions? Nope, okay, thanks.
So two of the
Oh,
three of the updates. The first one, the wastewater treatment plant was spending 75 million, and the last CSO was spending 200 million. So we're spending 275 million, and even though the middle one, Rick, talked about a drought, make sure everyone keeps up with their personal hygiene, shower, flush the toilet, because we gotta pay the bills. All right?
I do appreciate that.
Where can I
Thank
find that 275
Do a
million?
shower next
you.
week.
I think it was verbally reported.
Verbally, okay.
Yeah, the contract of the wastewater treatment plant is 75 mil, and the CSO is 200 mil, so
All right.
just a little sarcasm, it's good. We got bills coming.
Yeah.
We do sell water. Kings Beach, so the update's in your package. Eric's here to speak on the activity. We're continuing on the $1.15 million contract with BMC. We've taken out 3 services, nothing's really changed. We did have a steering committee meeting this morning at noon with the steering committee members, and we went over a few items. One, we're hopefully trying to get a pilot program, a UV pilot program for next summer. Okay, so we're pushing for that. It might be tight with design and procurements and locations, the logistics of putting like a trailer somewhere so you could treat the Lynn stormwater and the Swampscott stormwater. But, you know, the mayor is leading the charge, and hopefully we can get that done, but there's a lot of work on that one. But that's a pilot is certainly in the works until we find out the long-term solution. We also applied for a grant preparation through Elizabeth Warren, and we're in the process of submitting that document. It's for $20 million. I think most of the money has to be used for IDDE and some design for the future, whether it's an outfall or permanent UV or whatever it is. But Swampscott's put together a wish list. We did, Anthony, Ray, and Eric, and we put in for like $6 million to do IDI, so IDDE. So hopefully we'll get this grant and we'll have some money to continue for years to come. But I think the thinking is maybe we could get a pilot for UV for the summer for dry weather and make the beach a lot cleaner until we figure out what the permanent solution is. So that was one of the items. We're gonna meet with Swampscott relative to locations of maybe this trailer that was sort of minimal. We did give IDD updates, but we don't really have much. Swampscott's going forth with their phase 2 of their rehab. I think they're gonna use some of this $20 million for the rehab for their, $8 million contract or whatever it is. When we did it, we went through the SRF program, we got a loan. Ryan's paying it back as we speak. But, so it'd be good timing for Swampscott. They sort of hit the lottery as far as that one goes, in my opinion, but it is what it is. And then we also mentioned, I think, a few commissioners talked about a new Lynn Water and Sewer Commission outfall to move the flow from Kings to the, so the mayor mentioned that. Didn't really go into much detail, but that would just be taking the Kings Beach water from Lynn. And because of the elevations, I think I told you before, you need a pump station. You'd have to pump it to the 004 and 005, which are across from North Shore Community College by the new break heart. And then in order to clean the beach, you're gonna have to take Swampscott's flow. So now you take Swampscott's flow and Lynn flow, pump it to the break heart and discharge it into the little, harbor there that doesn't really have much circulation. It's sort of stagnant water. I don't know how I feel about that, but it's got a long way to go. I don't know why we'd be taking Swampscott's bad stormwater and putting it in our harbor, but it would help the beach, but, we can certainly discuss those things.
Okay,
So that's sort of what we talked about.
Can we go back with the 20 million? Do you know what's the timeline for that, or when?
The application, I think it's due this Friday. They're finalizing some of the numbers. We submitted a request for budgetary more money. In the original application, they didn't include our money. I think they had us for between 2.5 and 3.5 mil. We put a request in last Friday for 6.5, and that wasn't in the updated report. So Valerie just said, could you get any comments by Friday? So our comment's gonna be, we'd like to have 6.5 of the 20. and I think Swampscott's looking for 8, and then the other 6 are gonna go for a final design of whatever someone comes up with. And it has to be spent in 2 years, construction. That's somewhat the negative. I mean, that's why I think Swampscott's timing on their sewer rehabilitation project, they probably have specs all ready to go. And now they got free money to pay for it, whereas we borrowed money. But, so Eric's gonna go through the records, and we got 2.9 miles of pipe that required heavy cleaning. We're gonna try to find out if we can replace some of those, have documents ready. If we get the loan and if we get the grant, we'd be able to say, we're gonna replace 1,000 feet here, 2,000 feet here, and, whatever. So we got some work to do, but.
We need to get the money first before we'll cover.
Right, but you got 2 years to spend it, so we sort of gotta.
You have to plan for it.
Simultaneously working to hopefully get it, because,
Can we just review real quick the dates for the grant? So when is the grant due, and then will we find out roughly?
I just got the package today, so
It's application period's this fall, and it will be awarded in 25 for spend by 28. So
Okay.
we get about not quite 3 years. So that's why the final decision, it can't cover construction money for if it were a plant or a pump station or an outfall, because it has to be extended. So it's gonna go towards almost like call it shovel-ready things in the next 3 years. On the commission's piece of the 6.5, that includes upwards of 1.5 million in new equipment to support drainage investigation and maintenance, things that the commission could self-perform if they have the right tools. So it is going towards a variety of planning, design, piloting for the complementary solutions and construction, both Swampscott's repair and rehab project, but also we've included for upwards, assuming about $2.5 to $3.5 million worth of drainage repairs in Lynn as well.
So roughly just so I understand, the rough breakdown is about 6 million for us to do IDDE, $8 million for Swampscott to hopefully do some of their rehabilitation, a pilot program for the UV disinfectant, and then
Also, ozone, which is Save the Harbor, Save the Base piece, and the outfall design, some of the preliminary design and planning for the outfall extension.
Gotcha. So really, it's almost like a little bit of a planning grant in a way too, as we continue to study potential solutions, those being the top 3, and then, potentially one that we wanna talk about as well.
Yeah, so it's got planning, design, and construction and equipment money, so it's kind of going to a suite of services that can go towards Kings Beach, but not putting all the eggs in one basket.
So I think the other egg we want to talk about is one that we started talking about at our last meeting, which is the idea of redirecting the flow to Lynn Harbor. Seeing that the beach, even for UV or some of these more permanent solutions, are going to take probably years to see through. Eric, would you agree? I mean, for a permanent solution?
I think all complementary solutions, regardless whether it's an outfall, solution, treatment, they're all gonna be extended timeframes.
Yes.
I think the piloting, it might prove efficacy, and then it becomes a question of permitting.
Yeah, in location.
Location.
Of where you're gonna put a
Logistics.
plant or something down there. So if our goal, I guess my thinking is, if our goal is to open the beach, then you remove the pollution. Trying to treat it is gonna take some time, and I think that's the goal overall. But the one sure way of removing the pollution is to physically remove it and put it somewhere else, while the other work is going on to find the sources or to fix the sewage. So I think it's worth at least investigating whether or not that would be on par with the other potential solutions.
I think as a conceptual idea of building a pump station and pumping, it's over 1.5 miles. It's all on a state road.
And
And
costly.
So I think-
If I can just
Yeah, I was gonna say-
interject here real quickly, I just ran some numbers because we just did this work for the pump station at Commercial Street. That was a cross-country pipe, it's not in a street. Gioso's price for that was $1,875 a foot. This is, as Eric just described, is 1.6 miles to move that over there. So you're looking at about 8,500 lineal feet of pipe. That would run you about $16 million for the pipe itself.
Wow. For the pipe alone,
Pipe alone, $16 million.
you gotta build a pump station. The pump station, the CSO was $40 million.
Pump station that we built was a $40 million pump station.
$100 million.
Maybe it could be a smaller size. Also, we'd have filed Article 97 to trade land, get that piece of land. We got to replicate another area in the city to make up the difference for undertaking that land. So there's a lot to that, and it seems like it's an expensive proposition.
Can you utilize the piping that's already in the ground?
Not for that size. This, it would have to be a force main, and the force main would have to be of the size of about 54 inches is what we're doing for the pump station on Commercial Street. I would guess it's probably similar in size, maybe a little smaller, but we don't have, a force main is designed differently, it's got different tolerances, it has to be under pressure to move flow, so it has to be that type of pipe.
When the water was going to the treatment plant, how did it get there?
So the water to the treatment plant.
Before we separated it?
Yeah, so it got there from the location of Sanderson Ave. The brook was diverted down Sanderson Ave towards the plant. That back in 2008, I'm sorry. They reconstructed the weir wall there. So the weir wall now forces the flow down Sanderson Ave and out towards Eastern Ave. So there's a weir wall.
Yeah.
So the weir wall was built, the
Yeah.
water then changed directions and went to.
So,
Eastern
but
Ave.
before the weir wall was built, all that water was heading towards the plant?
During non-storm events.
Correct,
yes.
correct.
Yeah,
So
during
you could have
non-storm.
non-storm event water heading towards Lynn Harbor without having to construct a new pipe?
Right,
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
That's correct.
all right, well, that's good to know, because that would not require $60 million pipe down the street.
Yeah. Of course, doing that is going to put a tax on the on the wastewater treatment plants.
No, we would not be sending it towards the plant. We'd have to figure out a way to still, because we're definitely not sending it to the plant. I'm just trying to conceptually figure out if there's a way to send it to the harbor without having to build a pipe down.
Yeah,
No one's
right.
gonna do that, mile and a half down the
The
street. I totally
DEP,
agree with
your
you.
employer had us spend $97 million taking the stormwater out of the drain, out of the sewer in the 90s and putting it into a drain. There's no way we're gonna put it back into the sewer. That's never gonna be allowed. We spent $100 million taking all the flow out.
I think
That's
what
what we're
you're
doing,
saying is
that's what we're doing in West Lynn.
you might still end up needing pipe. It might just be gravity pipe as best as you can find space for it. And I think the other challenge with, say, Sanderson Ave is you're ignoring all the drainage that goes to Eastern because it doesn't even get to Sanderson. So you'd be bisecting the watershed, so some would still be going out to Kings Beach. So the hydraulics of which the sub-watersheds can get shed in one direction and others, the only place to catch it all is at the beach, including Swampscoots.
You know, I'm just curious.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just curious because none of us here are members of the Kings Beach Task Force. Did this discussion happen during your meeting, Dad? With the task force?
With the Kings Beach Task
Anything-
Force?
Yeah, anything that,
I'm not a member of it.
who's the member of the Lynn to the task force?
In the steering committee?
The steering committee, sorry.
Oh,
That
the
was-
steering committee. I'm
Yeah.
a member of the steering committee.
So
But not the
is
Kings.
this discussion happening in the steering committee?
Relative to the bringing the flow to
Right.
4 and 5. The mayor brought it up today, and he called me to tip me off that it was gonna be brought up.
It's a recent-
But he said,
recent conversation.
Robin and Mike were gonna do something at the meeting tonight, and
Okay.
that was sort of it. I don't know if he's in favor or against, I don't know, but
Are we talking about it?
What's that?
Are we talking about it?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about the same thing. Could we have Eric just sketch it out? What would it take, what would that look like? I mean, we're talking a lot of things about Sanderson going to weird, I don't understand half of what that means. But I mean, I guess from your perspective, Eric, I mean, is this just, this has no legs, or Or it is as feasible as building a 3-mile pipe out into the Atlantic Ocean.
All of the options have their own unique challenges with siting, then there's the permitting, and then I think the idea of conveying the amount of, and well, this is the other big thing, is we don't really have a feel for how much dry weather flow is coming through this watershed that is what is the normal base flow for Old Stacy Brook. That number is a hypothetical, no one's really ever, I've never seen it put down. So the idea of how much, you'd have to go out and figure out how much is each sub-watershed contributing, and then could you actually go from A to B, and do you have to have intermediate pumping? Because it's all coming to the low point, so like there's no guarantee that we can use gravity to our advantage. And if not, you might end up with multiple pump stations in order to bisect. So are you gonna go, let's just say, you'd have to go through all these evaluations to figure out what can you move and where can you move it to? And some things might be infeasible due to utilities, just the layout of the roads. Like you're trying to make it work within the new network of roads and streets and property ownerships. So how do you do that? You'd have to do it at like a 20,000 foot view and then start drilling down, and you might start seeing pieces of the puzzle become unfeasible. And then are you gonna go spend 20 million to remove 20% of the flow of the harbor? And those are the kind of value engineering exercises you go through, but you do it around a table to figure out what to get. But the first thing was you'd have to quantify the flow coming from all the subsheds, just so you could figure out what's coming from where and what is the true Stacy Brook base flow. The other big problem with anything is right now the outfalls aren't protected from ocean flowback. So we know that under certain tidal conditions, it gets all the way to the MBTA tracks on Eastern. That's a lot of your system that is getting surcharged with brackish water. So you'd have to seal all that off. You have all the same things they dealt with at the CSO station. You're gonna have to treat for all the floatables and other things that pumps don't like. So there's different elements of it, and then so whether it's a UV system or an ozone system or an outfall, like just commingling the outfalls to go on a pipe 3 miles out, each of them are gonna have something considerable, and you're talking orders of magnitude. Everything is gonna be an 8-figure number and more than 5 years without even probably taking too much of putting a pen to paper kind of thing. And you still all have on a lot of these solutions, is there a regulatory pathway to do what you want to do? Because in some instances, I feel like we're trying to thread a needle of, might not be a level of comfort, whether it's at the state or the federal level, because something like this hasn't been done before, and establishing precedent is not exactly something that is challenging. I think that's the biggest hangup, it seems to be with the chemical treatment systems, because it's stormwater. If it were wastewater, or even a true CSO, people treat CSOs and it's not, but those are permitted discharges that get some level of treatment. Just treating dry weather stormwater flow in urban areas is not something anyone has any, can point a finger and be like, oh, we've done it successfully in these different regions. So there is no simple way to say that one is kind of like outcompetes the other in terms of complexity or cost or time. They're all gonna be on a similar time and cost scale. It's just, right now the UV looks good on bench, but does it work in the real world? Is it kind of one? The ozone one is new to the game, I guess you could say, just because that's just materialized in the last few months. And early on, the conceptual study did look at pumping to the wastewater plant.
Right.
That was the pump solution
Right.
at the time. It wasn't so much, wasn't as much focused on the how do you get it from A to B. It was more like, what is that gonna do to the wastewater plant?
Right.
And those things were kind of more the stumbling blocks.
So that initial list that Kleinfelder looked at, that the steering committee looked at, had like 5 or 6, 7 options, and it went through like which one, and you sorted, and they were all sorted out.
Yep.
And so the only one, like you said, was pumping it to the plant, and I think that was like $76 million or something to pump it to the plant. The plant's gonna have problems because it's the wrong thing to be doing. So I guess this idea was not vetted, that we're describing right now, and probably to your UV and your other ones, because then the various pieces have come into play as you've kind of gone along in the process. And I guess from my perspective, it would at least be worthwhile just to sketch it out. Again, you know the systems, like just to sketch out, like just here's a, 20,000 foot view, like you said, of what this would entail based on just what we even know right now. And if it's going to cost $1.5 billion, okay, well then that was completely ridiculous and da 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 da. I'm just looking at all these various options that we have in front of us, and like you said, they all have some downsides to them.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't think this could be as one of the ones that just has as many downsides as the other. Because at the end, it just gets, again, unfortunately, while it's trying to be rectified, it removes it from the beach, at least during dry weather events, because wet weather events are a completely different story.
We did, one of the options did include something similar to this, but it was taking the Lynn and Swampscott flow and bringing it to Swampscott and bringing out a new outfall behind Pier 4 or whatever.
Hawthorne or whatever it is, yeah.
Anthony's.
So,
But that Steinfelder is Swampscott's consultant. So that was, when they were taking Lynn and Swampscott's flow and bringing it to Swampscott, that was eliminated right away.
Well, they're bringing it to our side then. and-
Yeah,
and-
I'm just telling you where it was eliminated.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you why, I mean, you can guess if you want, but
Right.
that was eliminated. So we did consider taking both flows out and bringing it to Swampscott, but they didn't, that was eliminated quickly.
so is it worth, I mean, even if we end up looking at the outfall all the way out by Nahant and Marblehead, and I can only imagine those conversations that are gonna take place,
Right.
if we're gonna consider that as an option, is it worth looking at the dry flow anyways? Like, is that time well spent, because it's probably gonna be part of that permitting process, and at the same time, we're sort of studying both options?
I think, as it's been explained, the grant would pay for more of the planning related to the environmental and biological potential impacts that an outfall will have, because you have to do eelgrass surveys, you have to do all the bathymetric work to find out, you're talking like the shellfishery stuff. So it's kind of, that is where some of the focus, because you have to get that information developed early to know if you're dealing with a whole other host of permits. So that's where that effort really is, and kind of also you still have to look at, like, we know where the edge of the pipe is now, you still have to get it from there several miles out, like there is a hydraulic analysis. So developing some of this information might come from both the piloting and everything like that, to find out like how many million gallons per day under an average dry weather day is there coming from the two systems. That could get developed out of those. But those scopes haven't been, they're still at such a conceptual pilot stage, like going out and figuring out the metering part, you probably would want to find out, is it like treatment, is it effective before you start going and do all this other additional evaluation and assessment, because if it's not effective, you might have just, it's not worth spending all that extra money on something that's steps after you. But I think that the flow, the siting, just the logistics of point A to point B is the kind of things that you're gonna have to like sequence in to figure out, all right, where could you put it? And if you can't even put it there, then you start getting into, well, you're gonna spend all that if you can only portion off a piece of it and it doesn't go from the beach any more frequently. Because that's a lot, that becomes also a new asset you have to now operate and maintain for its useful life, let alone reinvest in it 20, 30 years down the road. And you also have to build in the climate resilience factor of like, what is it gonna see? And look at, do all that kind of analysis. So all of it bakes into, it doesn't matter which approach it is, there's lots of time and money and pieces that the commission and the town and the city don't control. So it's a lot of balls up in the air just to kind of like settle in on one solution. So the grant is gonna fund some of these evaluations planning, plus focus on the source elimination, both in Swampscott and in Lynn, which gives them kind of that shovel-ready side of things. Things are happening, whereas it's not trying to like say, hey, we need this money for this grant to pay for the permanent solution, because it's not there yet as far as which one is the achievable solution, regardless of which one it ends up being. So.
That's a rosy picture.
Who's ready for dinner?
Thank you.
So, what does the board feel like? Do we want to suss this out a little bit more? Eric, would you be able to do something like that if we wanted you to?
I think we could look at having just like a workshop just to go over like, so give you some information as to how
Yeah,
the system is set up and how we did segregate out the Lynn side of the system to figure out for the IDD program, and those pieces are known, like as far as like what subcatchments we created just for our own program planning. And you can see where all the dots are on the map. That is something just to get a feel for like,
Yep.
where are the flows and loads coming from? And where is that in relation to where the hypothetical CSO 4 and 5 are?
Yep.
Because as the crow flies, yes, it might be a mile and a third, but once you start going the zigzag way, like Anthony said, it's
Yeah.
1.6 miles
Spaghetti.
of roadway that has a lot of other things going
Yeah.
on.
Right.
Squeezing a 52-inch pipe, even in an open area, is not, I mean, Dave can speak to getting it out to the harbor, and that was cross-country and relatively open real estate, so.
Okay, so we can have a conversation about that then?
Yeah, I think that's the best thing.
Further conversation right now. Yeah, great, thank you. Vinny, Rich, you have anything?
No, that's, I think that's the best solution right now.
Cool. Yeah, let's see, under other business, op-ed for Lynn item.
Is that
sorry,
Kings Beach?
Executive speech?
No, Kings Beach. Are we?
Wasn't that, no, that was Kings Beach.
Oh, that was Kings Beach.
Oh, God, yeah.
I thought it was. I was waiting for the forget it.
No, that's totally fine.
But before we move forward, Mr. Chair, I just would like to take this opportunity to thank Andrea Amor of Save Kings Beach. Your activism and your work is very commendable. We want you to continue doing so because community involvement and this work is really important. And we just want you to know that for the record.
Appreciate it.
Yeah?
Thank you for everything you guys are doing too.
Do you have anything, I was gonna address you in new business. Do you have anything you wanna talk to us about since we're on Kings Beach?
Yeah, so ironically, I'm here to talk not about Kings Beach.
Oh, okay.
But I'm here to talk about Lynn and Nahant Beach. In hopes of trying to begin a conversation so we don't end up with another 100-year problem on everybody's plate. So just to kind of catch some folks up to speed, Nahant Beach just saw its first year on record, according to Chris Mancini. And we ran a couple of quick stats, and parts of the beach were closed 36% of the summer, which is on par with Kings Beach. In fact, it's actually worse than Kings Beach. They are now testing on a weekly schedule rather than a daily schedule like Kings Beach is on. And so one of the things that we're doing this winter is advocating to DCR to switch to a daily schedule so we can get a really clear picture of what's going on along Nahant and Lynn Shore Beach, which both of those areas they manage, as well as the drainage areas. The outfall areas, to our understanding, those are managed by DCR. But obviously, Lynn Water and Sewer is certainly a very proximal part of that picture. And so we're trying to begin to gather information about what is known, maybe what is unknown, because the last thing we want, of course, is another beach that is polluted in our area, especially if it's something that we can quickly rectify or at least identify what those sources of pollution are, because it does seem odd and surprising that we are seeing areas of Kings Beach, like I think I ran the numbers in like something like Kimball and Pierce were at like 24% failure for the year, and then there was one area in Nahant Beach that's like 36. So that's like where would that be coming from? So anyway, we did circulate a petition to both educate the public about the pollution situation at Lynn and Nahant Beach. We presented that to DCR and Swampscott for residents awareness. And we're working on doing that with Nahant too, and I just wanted to come here tonight to let you guys know that that is something that we're working on. And the fourth bullet point specifically does ask Lynn Water and Sewer to make a systematic effort to try to identify potentially what areas of Lynn Shore Drive might be affecting Lynn and Nahant Beach, because it is very confusing that we are seeing worse numbers on those areas of the beach versus areas that are very, very proximally close to Stacy's Brook. Not saying that it's necessarily anything is wrong, but I think that it's a big question mark, right? What is causing it? And we should do some more investigation, both with DCR and with Lynn Water and Sewer. So that was a question I had, is like, what is known? What is the timeline for, what is the system by which you guys go through and look at things? Are you looking at any potential laterals that might be, you know, pulling into the stormwater system there and then dumping out on the beach? Because there's obviously something going on here, and we definitely want to investigate it before the next swimming season happens, so we don't have another awful year at Nahant Beach. Thanks.
Did you get some answers from DCR about Pierce and what's the other street?
Kimball?
Kimball.
So we didn't ask them specifically, we just focused that public comment
Right.
on Lynn and Nahant Beach,
Yes.
rather than talking about Kings Beach a lot as well. So I can't tell you exactly
Okay.
what that was. Those numbers I ran were based on the data on the, you know, the interactive water quality dashboard, and I just pulled everything and I asked the data set to tell me when it failed, which is 24%.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks. Does anyone from the commission want to respond or provide
To
any?
the question.
So-
Yeah, to the question.
Oh, yeah, sorry, so yes, or yes, around,
Sure, I guess I can address some of the issues. So from the Lynn Swampscott line to Red Rock, there are 40 catch basins along Lynn Shore Drive that discharge directly out through the seawall onto the ocean.
And
So.
that's along both Kings Beach and the other side of Red Rock Park, or just one side of Red Rock Park?
Well, this map showing one side of Red Rock Park, only this side, because I thought this was a Kings Beach issue, but it's not. So these catch basins would be from Swampscott line to Red Rock. And there's about 40 catch basins. There's about 6 systems, essentially at every intersection, where they have 4 or 5 catch basins, and they go into a manhole, and then there's a pipe that goes across out into the through the seawall. So, I mean, I would suggest DCR does what Eric's doing and sort of sample at these outfalls for surfactants, ammonia, and then if they found something, enterococci, if they found something, then, you know, we could do a systematic approach, but I don't know how you would even evaluate Lynn Shore Drive. I mean, we could obviously do it, but there's really no reason to do it unless someone took a sample at this location and said, hey, it's got 20,000 enterococci, we got a problem.
Yep.
Then we could see if we have a broken sewer that's leaking into it.
Yeah.
And then on the Red Rock side, from Red Rock, again, I thought it was a Kings Beach story, but most of these catch basins do not discharge directly to the seawall, to the ocean. At the beginning near Red Rock, there's there might be 10 or 15 catch basins that discharge here at this point, but everything from Wave Street beyond to the Rotary is going into a drainage system. So I don't believe that would get to the ocean. But again, I wasn't really,
System go, do you know?
what?
Do you know where that drainage system goes?
I think it goes to the across from the tennis courts. There's a big pipe behind the tennis courts.
So it's basically dumping on the other side of Lynn Harbor.
Correct.
or
Correct.
on
There could be few of these catch basin intersections that go directly to the ocean, but the map, again, I wasn't really prepared for this, but this map appears that, the first, up until Wave, most of the catch basins are going directly into the ocean through the seawall. And everything beyond Wave, it seems like it gets to the 72-inch that goes out to the other side by the tennis courts.
Yeah, and that's what we're hoping to do with DCR, not us, but we're hoping DCR does take action on testing all of those outfalls, because I think that's been like a big wake-up call for Swampscott, is they began testing all of their outfalls, not just on Kings and Fisherman's, which are, a known issue, but then also other areas as well. And it's
You can have it.
helping us to identify these problem areas so that
Thanks.
they can be remedied.
Yeah, our investigation stayed like a block off on Kings Beach because that's the last of the commission system is like on Ocean. And then everything on Lynn Shore Drive that's synthetic DCRs, there might be sheet flow coming down to Lynn Shore Drive, but there's no commission drainage tying into those outfalls. So they
Okay.
wouldn't be getting sampled by our program.
So where is the drainage then coming from? Is it just coming from the,
Lynn Shore and probably those intersections come straight. That's at the King, like Dan was saying.
Every street up has a dead-end drainage system, the system goes
And
up.
Anthony,
We've always talked about, we have MS4 sites for all stormwater. So I'm assuming that DCR must have Lynn has a program for MS4 discharges. We have, Ray has tested every single one of our discharges. So I'm assuming that DCR would have the same,
They should have the
It's a good question
same
for them.
state requirements for
Okay.
MS4 discharges. That's where I would look first.
thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, then if they find something, then we'll put a camera in and we'll evaluate our system and repair it immediately, but
Great.
I think we have to find a smoking gun first
Yeah.
on DCI before we.
Good first step, right?
Yeah, I think start with the end, right?
Right,
Because
right.
if that's what we think, that if the end shows that it's, you know, in poor condition, bacteria-wise, now we follow it.
Perfect.
Okay, well, that's what we're asking them, if you guys wanna, you know, jump in. The more the merrier, because we always need help getting listened to.
okay, that was
Yeah, we
good.
can-
Yeah, I mean, you know, whatever, let them know what it is you'd like assistance with, or, you know, they're great with, yeah. Yep, you're welcome.
Or you can let us know, we'll tell them.
I really appreciate it, thank you.
Right,
Yeah, I think at the last meeting, the steering committee, Jen, the swamp chick,
She got DCR to agree to.
clean the catch basins more
Clean the
often.
catchment.
Yeah, she has some, Jen Armini has some connection at DCR. She said we'll I'll have them clean the catch basin more often. I was like, there's only 40 catch basins, but, you know, we had 700, so it's a little bit different. But she might have a connection to say, hey, let's take a few samples here and see if we got enterococci bad numbers here.
I'll talk to
I think
you.
she'd be the good person.
Thank you.
okay. Next item on the agenda, the op-ed for Lynn item. There's a op-ed, there's a letter, basically a letter to the editor in your packet. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, if you wanna give me any feedback.
Pretty good.
Thank you. I'd like to submit it. It's signed by all of us, the board, and tries to highlight some of the great stuff that the commission is doing. So, I guess if you don't want me to submit it, let me know. Otherwise, I will assume that it's okay. There's some information in that I'm still waiting for from, around some of the money that we spent, because I want to highlight all the money that we've spent, and also how long our distribution system is, which I can never keep straight. So,
Sign it.
sign it, okay, got it. Ask for, yeah. Item B, continuation of non-union, non-contract employee adjustment. I'm gonna table that for now. We'll address that at the next meeting. Any further new business? Dan, you ordering pizza? Okay, never mind. No money for that. All right, with that, I will close the meeting at 6:05.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Jerome.